Vaiguru Ji ka Khalsa.
Vaheguru Ji ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji ki Fateh.
How are you, Benji?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, we're good. We're still smiling.
6 weeks in and we're still smiling.
6 weeks in and we're still smiling through the pain, Benji.
Oh.
So I just wanted to say Vaiguru Ji ka Khalsa, Vaiguru Ji ki Fateh to everybody that's joined us today. And I hope you are all keeping safe and all keeping well during the lockdown. So we've had a week of really engaging, compelling, informative Muscat Live talks. So we thought we'd end the week with a really hot topic at the moment, and that is, of course, home learning. So the world has kind of been forced into this situation where they're having to sort of engage in home learning, be a home learner. So I think it's a very timely topic. So I thought we'd start by actually just introducing ourselves very quickly. So Benji, do you want to start?
Yep. So my name is Amritpal Kaur, and I'm part of the Muscat team. And I'm a teacher for 14 years, coming on to 15. Makes me sound so old. So I've been an experienced teacher for quite a while. And yeah, this lockdown has been very interesting, to say the least. It's been difficult. But it's been a challenge as well. It's been, in one way, it's been good as well, which I'll go through after you've introduced yourself as well.
Yeah, so I am Indi Kaur. I've also been teaching for many, many years. Coming on, I think like you, Benji, about 14, 15 years.
Yeah.
It's got to the stage where I can't remember anymore. It's been that long. But I teach secondary school. So I teach in an inner city comprehensive school. And yeah, Benji, it has been quite a challenge. I think a challenge for parents, a challenge for students, but also a challenge for the teachers as well. So I thought what would be fun before we went into our home learning tips is just what are we finding really interesting or positive, and then what are we finding quite challenging. So for me personally, I'm gonna hold my hands up. I'm loving going to work in my jogging bottoms and my slippers. I'd love to say that I dress smart or professional every day. I don't. So I'm loving that I can do that, and I'm really enjoying the fact that I just need to go downstairs for work, that I don't actually need to leave the house. So it took some getting used to, but actually now I'm loving it, and I might struggle now to get back into the classroom. Challenges, I would say, is that keeping motivated. I think finding ways to motivate yourself, because you are working from home. So sometimes it's difficult to, those boundaries get a little bit blurred. So I think that's like everybody is just staying motivated as well. And then also worrying about my students, where they are, their well-being, are they falling behind, are they okay, how are they coping? So I think those have been some of the biggest challenges. So Benji, what about you?
Yeah, I think it's different for me because I'm a parent as well as the teacher. So in terms of the parent side, it's been good because I get to spend that time with my children and give them a lot more time. I like the fact that, like you said, we don't have to dress up for work. And I haven't. I've been in a gear ski for the past 6 weeks.
Nice.
Like I haven't worn a full start.
Love it.
Full disclosure there to everybody. I've been in my gear ski, in my PJs, in my joggers. But like you, I think I'm concerned about my children. So today I was phoning every single child in my class just to see how they are, their well-being. And that is a worry, the fact that obviously some children, you know, the ones that go under the radar and the ones that we need to make sure are okay. I think that's my concern there. Challenges have also been the fact that we're constantly setting work as well.
Yeah.
So having to set activities on a weekly basis, and it's not just your normal work that we would do in school, you're having to set extra as well for those children. And that's been difficult alongside being a parent, because I've got my own 3 children who I need to parent and, you know, give them their home learning as well. And so, yeah, it's been a juggle. It's not easy. I can, you know, promise parents that I know it's not easy. So that, on that side, I can sympathise with the parents who are possibly struggling with the home learning as well.
But also parents and carers need to realise that they're actually doing a really, really good job. You're doing a great job. Don't be overly critical of yourselves. I think a lot of parents feel the need to create a school in their house. And that's a very unrealistic expectation. And quite frankly, you don't want a school in your house.
No. Schools
come with very specific and very rigorous routines and structure, and teachers and senior management. So you can't recreate that.
No.
So, you know, you're doing your best. and know that you're doing your best. And I know there's a lot of parents out there at the moment feeling guilty. Am I doing enough? Is my child falling behind? But everybody's in the same boat. But do understand that your children's teachers understand the challenges, and they're doing their absolute best to make this as smooth as possible. So Benji, shall we launch into kind of our tips and tricks?
Let's go through our top tips of tips. So we've just been thinking about things that parents could do at home, or just to make it easier for them. And I think, just to reiterate what Benji said, do not beat yourself up about it, because you're not making a school at home. At the end of the day, it is your house, it's your home with the children, and you can only do what you can do with the resources you have as well. So that's just one thing to say to all the parents: please don't beat yourself up about what you're doing. I actually spoke to a parent today that I phoned, and she said, "Oh, it must be amazing in your house that you as a teacher, your children must be just working their socks off." And I said, "Oh no, I can guarantee you they are not. They are pushing the boundaries with me as well." So
they do say the hardest children to teach are your own.
Definitely.
That's what they say.
Yeah, and I agree with that 100%. So we'll just go in. So I think the first and foremost was the well-being of our children.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to say from the offset, this live is not about giving you activity ideas, because your own schools will have set the individual work. So we don't really want to go against that. But this is more about kind of holistic tips and tricks that should be able to apply to anybody, regardless of what country you're in and what stage of education you're at. So the first thing we wanted to talk about was actually talk to your children about how they're feeling. And this is really important for the emotional health and the well-being as well. But talking about feelings as well is really, really crucial. And it's really important that if you identify any kind of problems, that you actually come up with a solution together. So, for example, you might ask your child, how are you feeling at the moment? And they might express a concern that I'm worried I'm going to fall behind. I'm feeling really anxious about going back to school. And that's fine. Acknowledge that those feelings are completely normal. And, they're not weird or abnormal for feeling those things. But equally, it's very important to sit down and come up with a solution together. I think that's very, very empowering. It gives them a lot of power as well. So, for example, going back to my example, if they say, I'm really anxious about falling behind, sort of say, okay, I hear you. How can we make this better? What can we do so you don't feel like this anymore? So actually putting the power back to them. And it might be that you identify, well, which subjects particularly are a concern to you, because it can't be all of them. And then just finding activities that maybe you can do together to help them sort of make that progress, but they actually feel that they're doing something as well. So would you agree, Benji, about kind of talking about feelings is
definitely
crucial?
And I think with primary children, because primary is my area, so I think with primary children more so, as in looking out for signs. For example, at home, younger children will not be able to say, I'm stressed about X, Y, and Z. They won't do that. But what they might do is, for example, just start bickering with a brother or a sibling for no reason. Or that's how they start showing their stress. So we've got to look out for those signs as well. And I think first and foremost, yes, education is key. While they're off, we've got to, carry on with what you can at home. But with the well-being, I think for primary children is making sure that they're not overstretched as well. So you are possibly working with them, but you're not pushing them to that point where it is starting to stress them out. So you're overworking them. So I think from a primary sense, the well-being is not forcing, X amount or X hours of education on your child. It's having that balance. And we'll go through things of how to create a good balance and environment in the family home as well. But the well-being comes first and foremost, because this is very unprecedented. I mean, it's we've never had this before in our lifetimes. So for children to understand it, it will be quite hard. And we have to be there to talk to them, to ask them, how you feeling? I mean, they might see parents on with the news on, and they might be hearing snippets of what's happening around the world. And it's important that we talk to them about that as well, to explain what is happening, especially for the little minds. Because the little ones need more clarity on what is happening around the world.
And they can go into overdrive as well. They can start creating scenarios in their head. We as educators, we frequently worry when we get back to school, what kind of children will be coming back to us, and how long will we be seeing the effects of this. And the effects manifest themselves in many, many different ways. Not everybody's going to find it easy to get back into it. So it's that's our first tip, is to talk about how they're feeling, help them come up with solutions together, make it manageable. But equally, you as the adults in their lives, you talk about how you're feeling as well. You know, it's okay to say to them, actually, this is really unusual for me too, and I feel a little bit unsettled, but this is how I cope with it as well. So that talking, bringing the inside out, that's important. And I think with the older ones, I mean, I work with the scary teenagers. They're not scary, but they tend to be a bit more introvert, and maybe they're not so expressive, especially with their parents. So it's important that you keep the channels of communication open with them as well. So the emotional well-being definitely comes top. Okay, so that's our tip number 1. So Benji, tip number 2 then, something that's on a lot of parents' minds, is how do you stop children from falling behind?
And it is a big thing that parents are concerned that their children have been off now for 6 weeks, and we're not sure how long this is going to go on for. So possibly another 3 weeks, or we're not sure how long it's going to go on till the end of the year. So parents do have that concern. They don't want their child to fall behind. I mean, my child, I've got 3 children. One of them's in year 6, and she's been working really hard towards her SATs. And she is concerned. She doesn't want to fall behind, and I don't want her to fall behind. So a top tip that I've been doing with my children, so this is what's worked with me and my children, is we've been doing maths and English on a daily basis, but we've been spacing it out because I don't want to overwhelm them as well. I don't want it to be too regiment, that, you know, they have to do this by a certain time. I'd like a school, because I don't want it to be a school. So one thing, obviously parents are concerned about, you know, children falling behind, but remember, you're parents first and foremost, and, you know, you're not the teachers, so don't put that expectation that you have to deliver to what a teacher's doing. I think that's what parents need to remember as well. And even with myself, even though obviously I'm a teacher, that comes second, I'm a parent first. So I remember with myself and my children that you know, yes, I'm concerned about them, you might be falling behind, but I don't push them. And I've got to remember, I'm not their teacher. So I will teach and deliver whatever their teacher sent them, but I'm not going to push them above and beyond that as well. I think parents need to remember as well that, you know, every single child is in the same boat. So all of the children across the UK are in the same situation. So, you know, your child, where they are now, they will obviously miss education from the summer term, but that doesn't mean they'll fall behind. I think that's what we need to remember as well. So your child won't fall behind per se. It's just that, you know, obviously they've missed out a chunk of the education, and that's important to remember as well.
And sorry, Benji, equally, when we go back to school, we're very, very aware as well that children have had this disruption to their learning. So it will not be a case of we are just going to go straight back into it and pick up from where we would normally have been. That's impossible. So there will be some sort of contingency plan in place. We will be aware that there has been this massive break in their learning. And so that's, you know, that's a challenge for the teachers and the senior management of a school, but it is something that we are fully aware of. So
I think for those parents that do feel that they, you know, their child might be falling behind, we can go through things that you can do with them, which will come in a bit as well, like, you know, setting up a structure, a routine. So we'll go through things like that. But we just want to reinforce that please don't feel worried or stressed that your child might be falling behind, because we're all in the same situation. All the children are exactly in the same situation as well. So
something I would add about falling behind for the older children, so obviously I teach secondary school, is this is a question we got right before lockdown, when we kind of worked out that schools are probably going to be shut, and at the same time the challenge was trying to keep all the children very calm and keep some sort of a routine going, was that if you're worried about falling behind, is just follow your school timetable. So obviously that's easier with the older kids, especially your year 9, 10 and 11, because they are more independent. But we just said to them, follow your usual school timetable. Even if you start later than you normally do, just do the lessons that you would do on Monday, cover those subjects, do the ones you would do on Tuesday. And for a lot of them, that was a revelation. This idea that they can actually be independent and they can actually manage their learning in their own way. But that's another kind of learning. These are life skills as well. So it's important to remember that while they may not be doing the curriculum that they're doing at school, they are learning so much more as well, like resilience, perseverance. These are really, really crucial life skills. So that's another tip as well, is to just kind of maybe follow loosely your daily structure as well.
And I'm sure schools have possibly said, like I know the schools that around our network, we have sent out timetables, and it's not like you said, it's a loose timetable that you follow. You know, you don't have to stick to it rigidly, but it's there just as a guidance. You know, so it tells you what time you could possibly do maths or when your English is and so on, and that's there for you to follow as well. So do feel to, you know, that to follow that, and sometimes you might want to deviate from that as well. And it's always to go with what's best for you and your children.
Definitely. But the key is to try and maybe do, rather than do lots at the beginning of the week, space it out little and often, so they're doing something every single day. My friend from work, friend and colleague, she had a great analogy, which is about your, you know, treating your muscle as a brain. Your brain as a muscle. So if you go back to the gym after a really, really long time, you find it really difficult to get back into it because your muscles have gone out of practice. But if you regularly go to the gym and you regularly exercise, you don't feel those muscle aches and those muscle pains. It's because you've been using your muscles little and often. So that's the key with learning, is little and often if you have to, rather than kind of making it really, really intensive some days and then non-existent other days. Try and do little as often, as much as you can,
Definitely.
Right. So then, sorry, Benji.
Oh no, I was going to say, so I think that comes to next, like, as in setting up possibly a space, learning space.
So I found that this really works for me actually, as well as somebody who's teaching from home, is I have a set working space. And I think with your children as well, if you have a designated working area, if that's possible, it just kind of gets them into the zone. And you can make it welcoming, you know, I don't know, put some of their, I don't know, plants, toys, nice lighting, put up some posters, but just make it a little bit, you know, welcoming and a bit homey. But it just gets them into that working frame of mind as well. So I think that is a really, really good idea, is to set up a workspace. And then during the nicer weather, I mean, it was hailing today, but, you know, a few days before it was tropical, going outside as well. I think, you know, that's definitely something that you can make the most of as well. But Benji, what do you think about having a workspace?
Yeah, definitely. I think, and especially for the little children, they need to have that. They need to differentiate with where their learning is and where their playing is, so the children can understand that, okay, we're at the table now and we're going to be doing our learning here, or, you know, we're in the study and that's where we're going to be doing our work. So at home we've got a computer set up where the children will come and they'll access it in turns and they'll go on to their online learning. So I do think it's important to have a space where they know that's where their learning will take place. I think the next one, which is really important and I found really helpful as a mum, and as I'm still working as well, is having a structure. I think it was so important to have a structure, and that doesn't mean rigidly, you know, waking them up at a certain time and they've got to do things, you know, every hour by the hour. It's just having a loose structure so we know what we're doing when we're doing it, because especially with primary children, they like structure. I mean, I can tell you when it's non-uniform days or when we have days where it's free.
Same with secondary.
The children just go wild. They literally do.
When it's non-uniform day, I have to joke with them. It's non-uniform day. It's not non-rules day or non-compliance day, because they think it all goes out the window.
We have that in primary. So if it's a day where they're not in uniform, that's it. Everything's out the window. And it's the same as when they're at home. You know, I know when my kids are on Easter holidays, summer holidays, the routine goes out the window. So obviously we're at home now. We've been at home for a long time. And I think it is important to have some sort of structure in there, because that will help your children, especially with the primary children. And just an example, like my children, they still wake up, you know, 7:30. I get them up, they get ready, and, you know, they have a bit of their exercise going on. And then we get into doing some maths. We have a bit of a break, and it is breaking it up as well. You know, we don't do full on learning, sitting there for an hour maths or English. I don't do that because, you know, at the end of the day, they're home. It's not the school. So I think having a structure, having a little routine will really help your children. You know, going to bed at a certain time as well. Remember, they are still small, especially the primary children, they need a certain amount of sleep. You know, so them going to sleep on time will really help them as well. And like you said, it's their body that, you know, they need that rest in between. They need, you know, so it's just like the exercise you were saying, you know, it's important the body heals as well. They have that time to sleep on time as well. So I do think a structure, so for those parents who at the minute feel they haven't got a timetable in place or a routine, you know, just have something loosely in place. You know, once they've had breakfast, you might want to go out for a walk, which we've been doing around our area, just in Hamilton, just to walk around the area and then come back in. You know, you might take them outside. I know a lot of people are doing the Joe Wicks PE, so you might want to do that. I think we've got Musket. We've got somebody coming on from Musket to do PE soon. So watch the space for that. But yeah, so just do your exercise and then make something a small routine for them that they can easily follow. And like we said, not too rigid because it's not school, you know, but something easy for them.
And would you advise Benji coming up with a timetable together as well with the...
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm happy as well if, you know, parents need some extra support, you know, to contact us as well via Musket and we can help them. But I think it's important, like I was saying, to talk to your kids. You know, your children might like doing maths first, and I think it's important to say, okay, if they like doing maths first, let's do the maths first. And those children that don't like doing English, you can say, okay, we'll have an activity, we'll do a fun activity, and then we'll do English. And so they know they're having something fun in between to break that. So yeah, you know, definitely have that routine and structure in place. I think it really does help. And I've got 3 kids, and it's easier having a routine and structure in place.
Definitely.
I'm
and
not
you know
sure.
what? They're used to that at school. They're used to a very, very rigid structure.
Like I said, do you know when we have non-uniform days, or if we have days where we're out of sync, the children don't like it, you know. So I'm sure a structure would work or routine would work for those parents who are still struggling at the minute.
And it might be a bit difficult initially to enforce, but you know, as with all things, with practice, it becomes habitual. It does become a habit as well.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think, yes, some sort of a structure, that's, you know, really, really good advice. And even if it's loose, but children, young people, even teenagers, you know, they like predictability. They like things that are predictable, and they like a predictable routine, and that actually makes them feel very, very safe as well. Because I've often asked my students, and bear in mind I teach the teenagers up to 16, you know, they will always say to me, and I'm always surprised by this, they say we like routine, and this one was a weird one on me, but they like teachers that are strict. They said we like teachers with boundaries, we like teachers with high expectations. We're not looking for you to be a friend. You know, obviously that's completely different when it is your own child, but you know, the point there is routine, some sort of structure. The older children would benefit from it as well. So I think, like we said, we're trying to give you tips that would work across the age range.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Okay, so
next one, we've got take time out for your children.
So it's really, really important that you do take time out to relax, just get up and move, and have those regular breaks as well. Playing, just family time. We said it might be exercise, but kind of having fun and just sort of letting go of learning as well. That's really important. The breaks are just as important as the learning as well. Doing some art, being creative, mindfulness, going out, a little bit of a workout, singing, dancing. You know, there's so many things out there. Most of us have got the internet at our fingertips. So taking time out is really, really important as well. Would you agree, Benji?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, especially again, going back to primary children, it's having that break up between learning, giving them opportunity to go out and explore as well. So they're not just in the classroom environment, I'd say. You know, you've got to break it up. So for example, at home, we're doing like a little math session, and I don't make them an hour session. And I wouldn't recommend any parent does, because I think that's far too long for them to sit down for an hour to do maths. Remember, it's not school. So at home, my children might just do their activity that they've been assigned from their teachers, and then they'd go out and they'd have an activity, or they'll food play or Lego or whatever they're interested in. And it is breaking that up, because they will get bored or they won't want to do the work. And I know some children, parents now have actually messaged me to say, well, my child is bored of doing work. And what I'd recommend is having those breaks in between, because that way your child will want to come back to learn. So if you're doing, for example, your maths activity, send them off in the garden. Or obviously now the weather's not great, get them to do another activity, play a game, you know, give them fun things to do in between. So it is important to break up their lessons as well, because they will want, they'll rebel otherwise, and they won't want to learn.
Definitely. And relaxing, taking time out is really, really important. Definitely.
And do you know what? I think we have to remember, we've been given this time and we should see it as a positive as well. The positive is that we can spend that time with our family now. So we've been given this extra time, like, you know, Maharaj has given this extra time to us. And I think it's really important that we use that time, you know, to spend with our children and our family and our loved ones. Because I know from my own experience, I was constantly moaning, you know, rush to work, rush feed the kids, rush, you know, it was constant on the go. And I think now we've been given that time, use it wisely, you know, spend that time with your children, and do what they want to do as well.
Yeah.
You know, ask them what they like doing. You know, my daughter loves going on the trampoline. She makes me go on it as well. So it's doing what your children like. So spending that fun quality time with them as well, in between the learning as well.
Yeah. It's really, really important. So our next tip then is let them be teacher. What do you think,
definitely.
Benji?
I think, you know what it is, especially little ones. I don't know, Benji, about secondary, but little ones love to tell their parents how to do things.
Yes.
So, and you know what? Let them do it. So, for example, if they're writing a sentence or they're doing something, and you're itching to say to them, actually, that's not right. Let them show you. And, you know, you can say to them, for example, I do with my own kids, oh, Preppy, is that right? And then he'll be like, oh, no, Mummy, I forgot I was supposed to put this there. Like, you know, let your children lead you.
Yeah.
A funny example I'll give you is nowadays, obviously in year 5 and 6, they use, you know, for example, words like expanded noun phrases, frontal adverbials. And, you know, when Dee was younger, she had work like that. And her dad didn't even know what that was. So slyly, he's there on Google trying to search what it is. So let your so, you know, let your children teach you, you know, let them explain to you what it is. So if they, for example, say, Dad, I've got to do work and it's got to have, you know, expanded noun phrases, say to them, oh, what is that? Can you explain it to me? Let them teach you. And I think that will be really good as well for you and for your child, because it will really give them that confidence, the fact that they're actually teaching you. And it's nice for them to feel like that, you know, as well.
It's really empowering. But if you think about it, it taps into a much deeper skill set as well. Cognitively, there's one thing you absorbing the information, but when you then have to transform that information to teach somebody else, it's a much deeper brain process. And at GCSE especially, to our students, one of the best revision tips that we can ever give them is quiz each other. Get somebody at home to quiz you as well. And I remember when I was studying for my GCSEs, I would get people to quiz me and I would quiz my sisters as well. So it's about you becoming the master and then sort of informing somebody else. So transforming information in that way, actually, you are simultaneously learning and you get to feel a bit, you know, bossy, I'm the teacher.
Yeah, definitely. You know. And I think that's what parents forget as well. Children actually do this already in school.
Yeah, they do.
You know, they partner talk and they work with each other and they teach each other and support each other. So they're already doing that, and let them showcase that to you and you just be impressed by them. And that will really, really boost their confidence. So if they're doing something, get them to explain it to you. Oh, how would you do this? And do you know what? Children will thrive on that. They really, really will. And I've seen it with my own children, and we do it in school. We've seen it work in school as well.
Yeah, and equally with the older children, they will be used to giving presentations to the class. For a lot of them, I know for English, they would have to have given a GCSE speech in front of their peers, and that would have been graded. So, you know, whatever topic they're doing. So, for example, English, they might be doing, I don't know, scene 3 or act 3 in Macbeth. Say, prepare a presentation on that and tell us about it. Inform us, make us an expert. Somebody with a 0 starting point, how would you make us into a little bit of an expert? And that just puts a different spin on it, but it's actually quite interesting as well. It's a nice little challenge, and it's in the safety and comfort of your home, and it's with people that know and love you and support you as well. So that's just, you know, making them become a teacher, very, very empowering, giving them a real audience too. I think it's a really sound tip, definitely. And try it if you haven't tried it already.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So,
next tip.
The other thing is tapping into their interests. Okay. So, learning doesn't just have to be from textbooks, it just has to be from websites. So, I think the example, Benji, that you were talking about earlier was about Lego. So, if they're really, really interested in Lego, you can find lots of sort of videos on YouTube about how playing with Lego helps to build your math skills as well. And if they're interested in cooking, or you're interested in cooking, you can teach maths through cooking as well. Captain Tom, God bless Captain Tom. You can tap into that and maybe use that as a platform to learn about the war, learn about both of the wars, learn about the role of Sikhs in the war effort as well, something that is, you know, long been kind of left out of the curriculum. This is your opportunity. So find their interests and, you know, sort of do a little sneak attack, but actually they can learn through that as well. They can learn so much through that as well. So what do you think about that, Benji?
Definitely. And nowadays our curriculum is all creative. So especially in primary schools, it's all about creative learning, and it's taking that learning out of the classroom. So you're not in that space where you're just sitting there writing in a textbook, or, you know, you're just sitting there and, you know, copying from a paper. You know, it's not that anymore. It's taking the learning away from that.
Yeah.
So like you said with cooking, you know, get your child to help you weigh, you know, measurements for cake. You know, we had Benji yesterday who gave us a brilliant recipe for vegan cupcakes.
Lush.
They were delicious.
Amazing.
They looked delicious, didn't they?
So jealous of her house.
But yeah, so get your child involved, you know, get them to measure out the ingredients, and that's what you need to do with everything. So like you said, Lego, you know, with children of the younger age, for example, in reception and primary, they can start they can start counting, you know, say, can you find me 20 pieces of Lego? Okay, add 5 more on, how many do you get now? So it's taking that learning one step further, rather than sitting at it and looking at it. It's taking it, you know, from, you know, using manipulatives basically, like they do in school, you know, see it as encounters. So rather than having encounters, they've got Lego there. You can say to them, can you make me a triangle, you know, for the little ones? Can you make me a square from Lego? So you can use so many different ways of learning, and it doesn't have to be paper, pen, you know, a book, pen, or just sitting there. It's making it fun. You know, we were outside in the garden, we had a water fight, and, you know, it was like, I gave them a times table question. If they got it wrong, they got squirted with a water gun, you know. And you can do that when the weather's nice, and you know, you can have fun with it.
Definitely.
You know, so make the learning fun, you know, make it creative, and tap into what they like.
Yeah.
Definitely tap into the interests that they like.
One of the first things, I mean, I teach English, and one of the first things we will do, especially when we teach in classics like Shakespeare, because the question we get again and again is, it's in a language I don't understand. You know, Shakespeare was writing in the 1500s. What's that got to do with me? The first way you access it is you've got to make it relatable to them and their way of understanding. So, you know, Romeo and Juliet is still topical. Macbeth is still topical. You can still link it to them. So once you make it relevant to them, they are likely to be more susceptible to it as well. So, you know, within the realms of what is possible, and within the realms of what is doable, tapping into their interests and turning that into a learning activity, I think that's really important. And I think parents will find that it's a lot easier than they think, that they would actually be really, really good at that as well. So, you know, that's our next tip, definitely, is to tap into their interests. And you know your children best as well, and try and see what activities you can devise. I mean, you know, even if you find a painting or a photo that you really, really like, that can be an amazing stimulus for some creative writing.
Definitely. My son's into Ninjagos, and if I was to say to him, write about your favourite Ninjago, he would write about it, because that's something he likes. So definitely, parents, use what your children like, and, you know, work to that as well. Definitely. And it's not always about just, you know, whatever the teacher gives, yes, you know, stick to that. But if you want to get them writing with what they like, or, you know, doing something, use their skills, use their interests, and that will be the best way to go as well.
I've just seen Kuljit Baji's message. Thou is right.
I know, I just saw his message.
Yeah. That's brilliant.
The next one, we've got change is difficult. So I think, you know, it's really important to remember that this has been hard for adults. So, you know, imagine tiny little brains, you know, trying to understand everything that's going off, you know, from the point of the fact they can't even go outside to the park, you know, just, it's difficult for little ones to understand. And it comes back to having that communication with your child. And, you know, if they don't do their work one day, that's fine. You know, it's okay. Because, you know, they're not in school, and we're not in that environment where they have to do things, you know, by the book. And they will have days. I mean, my children had it. Yesterday was a lazy day. We didn't do anything, because I looked at them and they were just tired. They didn't want to do any learning. And I was like, that's fine. So you know what? It is difficult. A lot of things are going on. And I know with the younger children, they do find it hard to explain at times. So they might not say, oh, I'm really worried about, you know, what's going on in the world. They might just shut down and say, I don't want to do anything. Yeah. You know, so, you know, you've got to look at that as well. But just remembering that this is very difficult for everybody, but children will find it really hard as well. Yeah. And they might not always express it. I think with secondary it might be different. They would obviously talk about those things, but you were saying some children possibly might not.
Well, yeah, I mean, equally, even at an older age, the secondary age, they're not sometimes very great at verbalizing how they're feeling, and a lot of them won't ever express themselves as well. And I think with the older students, it's motivating themselves. They find that quite difficult as well. So all of those tips that we've said, like we said, would apply to the older children and the younger ones: the routine, the schedule, the talking to them, following their school timetables if they are able to, but also making them aware that there's a bigger picture here. And the bigger picture is that when they do go back to school, that they're not worried, they're not stressed, they're not anxious, and working at home is one way of lessening the anxiety. Because a lot of the older ones, when they get to GCSE, they think stress is a given, but we often say to the older children that stress is not something that you have to go through. If you're feeling very stressed or very anxious, it's a trigger that you're not actually coping. So let's try and find a coping mechanism as well. So, you know, that would certainly apply to the older children as well. With them, the challenge is just getting them motivated, and they can stick their heels, they can dig their heels in, they can start dragging their heels. It is difficult with the older ones, you know, but all I will say as teachers is the way that you get the older ones to kind of toe the line is reward, kind of sanctions. And I'm not saying, you know, start sanctioning your children, but it's the same system at home as well, is that recognize when they are doing well, recognize that it's hard and they are doing really well, but, you know, when they're not as well, talking to them about that as well, and talking to them about possibly maybe the long-term consequences of if they're not doing a little and often. And with the older ones, you can sit down and have those quite stark conversations with them as well. And sometimes you do have to get to that stage and get to that level, because we don't know when we're going to go back. And, you know, you want to do everything that you can to help yourself get back into school, because it will happen. They will have to go back to school. I think some of them might think it's an extended vacation. It's not, you know. We're doing everything that we can to get to that point where we can get children back into school. So it is going to happen. This is about easing the transition. So with the older ones, you know, explain that to them, talk to them, have those realistic conversations with them as well. So yeah, really, really important that you recognize that change is hard. And then I think go on, baby.
Sorry, I was going to say, it just brings me on to that praise, the next tip, which is praise. And we don't actually praise our children enough. And I think it's really important that whatever they do, whatever they show you, you know, praise them on their work. Give them lots of praise, especially with the little ones. I know primary children, they thrive on that. You know, they want to feel valued for whatever they do. It might be, to us, you know, it might seem like a small piece of writing, but to them, you know, that's like amazing work that they've just done. So praise everything that they do. Give them lots of praise. And that doesn't mean to just give false praise, but it's making them feel valued at whatever they're doing as well. And it could be that, for example, my children, you know, they play instruments. So when they're playing the vajja, you know, and they've done a shabad really nicely, it's praising them for that. You know, it's saying, well done, that was really good what you did there. When they practice their dilruba, you know, it's really, really good. And, you know, I've got a person who's put their, you know, feel guilty for not praising enough. And to be honest, we're all at fault. We don't praise our children enough. And that's a tip for us all to take as well, that, you know what, we should praise them, but we don't, and we should. And I think that's for everyone. And that again goes throughout all ages, you know, even when they hit secondary, it's making sure they know that they are valued as well, because that praise will seem as value to them. So yeah, that's really important, I think, the praise.
You know what I've just been reminded of, Benji, is, you know, Monsters Inc., that cartoon. So they power their city through children's screams.
Laughter. Oh yeah, screams.
Screams. But they found actually that when they powered them through children's laughter, it was far more effective. And it's the same kind of principle with children. Even at a secondary level, I find that positive behavior management is what it's called, works far more than kind of sanctions and being really, really strict and pointing out people's flaws. So how lovely that to point out what somebody is doing right is so much more effective sometimes than honing straight in on the one person that's not doing something in the way that you would expect. So positive praise, encouragement, recognizing what they're really doing well, and that is a real boost for the self-esteem as well. And actually, when we're praised as adults, it makes us want to do more as well. It kind of galvanizes you to do more, and kind of gives you a fire and makes you feel really, really enthusiastic and positive. So it is really important to praise. Find something to praise. And maybe some days it might be very difficult to find something to praise. I know with teenagers, you know, they can be stroppy, they can be difficult. Not all of them, you know, I'm not generalizing, but find that that's something to praise, and it's infectious. They want more of it. You know,
and share. Sorry, I was going to say, and share their work. So, for example, if you've got siblings and one does something, you know, share it with the other person. Say to them, "Oh, share your work; it's brilliant." You know, get them to be really proud of what they're doing. So, yeah, praise is really important, and I think all of us don't do enough praise.
Definitely. So, Benji,
I was just going to say, Benj, I'm very conscious of the fact that this only lasts for 1 hour.
Oh God!
So we've got 20 minutes. And we need to get through this.
Now you know how our students feel in the classroom. Once we go off on one, that's it.
So we'll go through the next few ones, and then we've got quite a few questions that have already come through. So we'll go through our questions as well. Yeah?
Yeah, definitely.
So the next one I think we had was, an opportunity to develop Sikhi through this. So as I was saying, use this as a positive now. I think, yes, obviously we're in here and it's not nice what's going on in the world outside. But if we try to take a positive spin on it, we get to spend that extra quality time with our family. And that time we can start doing extra art with them. You know, we could eat them with them in the evening. And it's trying to take a positive spin on what is going on. So, you know, get your children to learn an extra shabad. You know, say to them, you know, I want you to learn this shabad, you know, by next week. Or, you know, for the Afari from Japji Sahib, say, can you do this? So giving them something else from Sikhi as well, you know, doing Eid and together. And I think it's really important as well to do that. Watching Sikh animated movies as well, you know, bringing that into it. Teaching a Punjabi, you know, Santhia. There's so much as well that you can access now online. I just think, yes, use this time as well. Yes, obviously the home learning for, you know, the Western education is important, but I think let's try and bring a bit of Sikhi into it as well. So I just think that's a really important one to bring in, that why don't we utilize this time and see it as a positive, you know, and bring in some Sikhi into it as well. And just do, even as little as if you start off with 5 minutes Simran together as a family, you know, and then you can slowly extend that. And it just becomes a routine then. You know, if you sit together for 5 minutes, you can extend it to 10 minutes. And it's just building that as well. And it makes you stronger as a family.
Definitely.
And you know, I think it's, definitely really important.
And schools as well, we are legally required to give them a spiritual education as well. So things that are good for the spirit, good for the soul, good for their well-being. So that's something that you should definitely try to carry on
definitely.
at home as much as you can. And, you know, sitting down, even if like myself, you know, I'm the most ignorant, uneducated person on the planet. If you don't know much Bart, you know, you can sit down and do some Naam Simran together as a family.
Yeah, definitely.
You can learn as a family, and that will bring you so much closer with each other as well. So Benji, I'm conscious of time. The next tip that we had was be positive, and I think that we've covered that quite a lot. Benji, flexible home working, what would you say?
I think we need to remember that, for example, I'm still working as well as being a mum. So I've got to be flexible around my children as well as working as well. So for me, being a parent is first and foremost, and then my, you know, teaching comes. So, you know, you've got to be for parent. This is going to parents. Now, parents, just be flexible. You know, don't feel, like we said, have a loose timetable, but be flexible about it. You know, at the end of the day, you know, people don't realize it, but moms are like superheroes, you know.
They are.
And I do feel moms have like a superhero cape on all the time. And remember, we can't do everything and anything, you know, all in one go. So space things out. Be so flexible about things and what you can fit in one day. Do not feel that you have to fit everything in. So, for example, my child, you know, yesterday they didn't want to do anything. And I just emailed the teacher and just said, you know, so sorry, but the children didn't feel like, you know, doing it. And just be honest with the teachers. And I found that really helped. And the teacher was like, that's fine, it's okay, they could have a lazy day. So have that dialogue as well with the teachers to say, actually, my children didn't really feel like doing anything today. I found personally that helps when I've been honest with the teachers to just say they don't feel like it. But as a parent, just be flexible around your working environment as well as the children as well.
Really well said, Benji. I can't add any more to that. And do remember that your children's teachers are still working. The schools are still open in the virtual sense. So reach out to them if you're really struggling to motivate your children, if you really can't find a resource that they can access, you know, email them, and they will have a system to get back to you, you know, and they will hopefully get back to you very swiftly. But the teachers are still working. They are still, you know, legally responsible for the education of your children, and we do take that very, very seriously. And it's challenging for us as well. It's unprecedented times for us as well. We won't, you know, say that we have the answers straight away, but we're certainly trying to point you in the right direction as well. So do reach out if you are having any kind of problems as well. I think, you know, it's when we don't hear from children, and sometimes when we don't hear from parents, if they're too quiet, you think, okay, what are they doing? Your mind goes into overdrive. So you just come from the place of, like, we're assuming everything's okay. But equally, if you're really, really struggling, reach out. There are people there that are there to help you, and they are vested in your children. They care about your children too. There is a support network in place. So, you know, that's really, really important to remember. And then I think that sort of leads us to our last tip, which is about staying connected. Remember that in school, children aren't just learning the curriculum, they're also developing their social skills as well. And it's really, really important that they still connect with their friends in some way. You know, you can have the Skype calls, the Zoom, but touching base with friends and just catching up, that's really, really important. And it can be a form of therapy for a lot of children as well. So stay connected with friends, stay connected with family. Everybody needs social interaction, and we're in a, you know, we're social creatures, but we're in a time where we have to socially distance. So it goes directly against what we as humans are used to. So let them have that side as well. It's very, very important that they stay connected with their social circle.
Definitely. And I agree with primary as well. It's the same thing. Primary children, you need to allow your children to have that social connection, whether it be with families or FaceTiming family, cousins, friends. They need that. Just as we are in touch with our friends and we'd have that chit chat, your children also need that, because like Benji said, in schools, it's not just there for learning. We're not there. We build a social environment there for them. And it is very important that those children keep those social skills going in this time that we're in. Because when they go back to school, the first and foremost thing that we'll be doing is looking at their social well-being and how they're interacting with other children. So it's really important. I think if one thing you really want to do for your children is get them socially connected, let them talk to friends, let them talk, and be there, monitor it. Because I can understand parents' anxiety there, you know, saying we're going to phone X, Y, and Z. You know, monitor them. My children, they call their friends, but I monitor that, you know, and I see who they're calling, and they're on the phone while I'm there for about a few minutes. And it's just giving them that freedom to actually speak to their friends. And having that social network, because they need that as well. Remember, they're children and they need to see their friends. Just as we need to connect with our friends and our, you know, family. They need to do that as well. And we've got to remember, they're enclosed in a house with, you know, limited family members. They need to be able to branch out. So they must stay connected. I think it's really important that they are connected socially as well with families and friends.
So Benji, I think we'll go on to some questions.
We'll go on to questions.
We had four questions in, so we'll just go with that.
Definitely.
So me and my children are falling out, losing our patience with each other a lot at the moment. How do I stop this? Ooh. Benji, how are you managing it?
I think, like I said, so with me, I have a very loose routine, and I think that would work well. I know with my children it works well. So we have like a little routine. They come down, have their breakfast. You know, the first half an hour is a bit of a chill out for them. And then we go into doing one of the lessons. So it might be a maths lesson. And then after that, they will then go and have a break. And it is giving them those breaks in between, because like we said before, you can't make it a school. You know, you can't be rigid and have every hour them doing something. It's got to be flexible, and it's got to be fun for them as well. So what I'd advise that parent is have some fun interventions in between that. So I think, because we did have another question which links in nicely to this one, is what subject should I focus on? And I think it links in nicely, because if you do focus on the maths and the English, and that's not disregarding the foundation subjects, but it's just saying, you know, if you do say half an hour of your maths, give them fun activity, let them go off, play, do what they need to, bring them back in, and then do half an hour of English. I find it helps with my children. So that would be a tip that I'd give to parents, is space the activities. And like Benji said, little and often is better than doing, you know, a full hour of you bombarding them with something and then them falling out with you. It's better to do something small, give them a fun activity, send them off, you know, let them do what they want, bring them back in. And that works better than just sitting down hours and hours on end. So I hope that helps that question. What do you think, Benji?
Yeah,
Or how would you, because with older children, it might be harder.
I would totally agree with that, but just recognize also that they might just need to have their own time and their own space. You might all just need to kind of branch off a little bit, go off and do your own thing, have a little bit of a space, because I think a lot of us feel that we're in a bit of a bubble, and a lot of us are getting cabin fever as well. So just kind of go off, do your own little thing for, you know, a little bit of time, and then regroup after you've had a little bit of a break. But physical exercise as well is really, really important. Getting active is really, really important. Helps people stay upbeat and very positive. But, you know, we've said a lot of things that would kind of help with this sort of keeping your patience with each other. The rewards, the talking about feelings, having some sort of predictable routine as well, giving them some sort of an ownership over what it is that they might do as well. I think with the older kids as well, that's really, really important. We had another one, Benji. Should I feel guilty for not doing any home learning with my child?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think like we're saying, it's having that balance. So yes, you don't want your children to fall behind, but then on the other end, some parents are finding it really hard. They're finding it very hard to, for example, you know, to teach 3 children in one go and then keep on top of the house chores, and on top of that, they've got their own work that they're doing from home. So some parents are finding it very difficult. And I think in primary, the advice that I would give is, if you can do the core with them, reading, do some reading, the maths, if you can do times tables, multiplication, the main that they need, as long as you're doing a little rather than nothing. So try to do a minimum, you know, in the evening. If you find in the day it's difficult, in the evening, say 5 minutes reading, you know, and that's all it takes with the little ones, 5 to 10 minutes reading. And then you could do maths as well, give them quick multiplication test or division, you know, and it's trying to fit in little bits. So I know it's hard, but don't feel guilty is what I want to say as well, because we are all in this situation and it is very difficult and everyone is finding it hard. And even as teachers, we feel guilty that we are not able to give our children in school that 100% that we normally would do. But, you know, don't feel guilty as a parent. Just do what you can in the time that you have with them is what I'd advise those parents.
And I think we had a question just here in the comments. Is it better to do one-on-one, or is it better to have them all learning at the same time? I mean, I guess it would be quite similar to a classroom context, is that they would all be getting on with the tasks, and you would kind of be going around and just checking how are they getting on and giving the help as and when needed. You know your children. If you know that they need to have one-on-one, you might then stagger it throughout the day and say, right, I'm going to focus on you now, focus on you then, focus on you then, maybe set the others off with an activity. If you've got the older ones, they could all be working at the same time. You could all be working together. You could be getting on with your work, and then just checking in every so often that, are you on the right track? What have you understood? Are you gaining something from this? So it very much depends. You know your children best.
I think if they're primary age, so mine are 3 primary age children, what we have is we have 3 spots that they work in. One's on the table in the dining hall, one's in the study area, and one is upstairs in her room. Now, she's in year 6, so she gets on with the work herself. The other 2, they're within my eyesight, so I can sit with one, set the other one up to task, and go and work with the other one. So I think when they're primary age, it might be easier to set them up at the same time. And then float between the 2 that need most support, or, you know, work. I think because, like, you know your own children, and you'd know which ones would be able to work on their own and which ones you can then float in between and work with as well.
Just like in the classroom, Benji, you know, if I set a task to my class, I know which ones might have the special educational needs, which ones need more reinforcement. So I would kind of always hover around them. So try and maybe emulate that with your own children as well.
I'm trying not to laugh at Guljeet Singh's message there.
He's like, you know, that child at the back of the class.
Yeah, that one child,
really
that's what Baji's like. We had another question, was how can we help a child who gets distracted very easily, and with a toddler that distracts them as well? So I think it again comes down to having a routine, but trying to make it more loose as well. So that, for example, if that child, I mean, I've got my middle one, easily distracted, you know, and he has to have short bursts of lessons. And I find that works best with him. So maybe do small activities, break off, small activity and break off. Because if a child does get easily distracted, it's either they're not engaged in the learning. So trying to make the learning fun as well for them, that would help as well.
And just, I think, short targets, really small targets, so that I want you to finish this, and make them very realistic, achievable activity, not just do this within the next hour. Well, how about you do this task, and then we'll have a little bit of a break, and then after that I want you to do this task. So very small and manageable, because, you know, I'm thinking about in my lessons, those that are just chronically distracted, they need very short, achievable goals, almost like some sort of a tick list. It's nice to just tick a task off. We're like adults. Once you've ticked it off, there's a real sense of fulfillment. But Benji, there's another question that I wanted to touch on, because we've only got about 5 minutes before we get cut off. And I thought this one was a really interesting one. So I'm just trying to navigate my computer. Any tips on supporting children that are about to transition to secondary school? So I thought that was a really, really interesting one. Obviously, what would normally happen with the transition is that they would go and visit the secondary school, and any children that have quite explicit needs, they would go and have a one-on-one tour of the secondary school as well as the induction day. But at the moment that can't happen. So you could almost, you know, kind of go onto the school website. If you know, you'll have your places now, won't you, Benji?
Yes, so the children have got their places.
You can get to know the school ethos, curriculum. Websites, school websites are really, really good nowadays. They kind of put so many things up there. They put up the learning maps, they put up the curriculum. You could even access the national curriculum yourself, the Key Stage 3 curriculum. But it's almost about virtually trying to find out as much as you can about the school as possible. But also making them aware of the challenges of going to big school as well, you know, making them aware that it's going to be a bigger school, that there's going to be a lot of movement in the day. You don't stay in one place in secondary school. You're going to have a different subject teachers. You're going to have to be more independent. You're going to have to be more organized. There's going to be a higher volume of homework and very tight deadlines. But that's not to scare them. You can actually make each one almost kind of a talking point and saying, right, okay, so how can we do this? How can we make ourselves more organized? Or how can you cope with navigating yourself around a big school? How can we make friends as well? How will you remember where you need to go? And turn it into a practical exercise, kind of let's find solutions for each of these. So it's you know, very, very difficult. But what do you think, Benji, about that?
Definitely. And I mean, my daughter's in year 6 and that's what we've been doing. So, you know, she's gone through the prospectus, she's looked at subjects, and she's just basically getting used to the school virtually. And that's what we've just been doing, is talking through what the subject content is, what she'll be learning, the timetable. And at the minute, that's all you can really do is prepare them in that way. So get to know the school, look at it virtually, you know, and nowadays on YouTube, you find the school videos. So let the child see some videos of what the school's actually doing, performances and so on. And for now, I think that's the best way to go, like you said, is get them used to it virtually. I'm very conscious, Benji, we've got 2 minutes.
But that tip about accessing the national curriculum as well, you know, for those parents that want to find out the subjects and things, that's a really, really good way to go as well. It's just flashed up. We've got one
got 1 minute left. Have you got any more
Benji,
questions?
go on. Which one can we do?
I had one about a year 2 child who doesn't like writing. And again, that just comes onto tapping into their interests. So if your child likes, you know, Ninjagos, write about Ninjagos. If they like superheroes, get them to write about something that they like. And that's a quick tip that we'd give them.
But equally, I would say also, one thing we notice at secondary school is that children come to us with a vocabulary deficit. So I say in order to be able to access GCSE, they actually need a vocabulary of about 50 to 60,000 words, which a lot of children fall short for various reasons as well. There's a lot of socio-economic reasons too, a lot of things that are beyond their control as well. So kind of learning about words, a word a day or maybe a few words a day, really learning what they mean, learning the different contexts that you can use them in, and then the challenge is to do a piece of writing with that in. So, you know, building the vocabulary, that's really, really important. Definitely. But at secondary school as well, we find writing for different audiences and purposes at GCSE, that's a real skill. So, you know, find them different tasks, but give them a different audience. So one might be the editor of a newspaper, one might be you're writing to a friend, one might be you're giving a speech to the student council at school. Write your speech. So writing for different audiences and purposes, that's really important. So we've got 30 seconds, Benji.
Benji, can I finish off
Yes.
with, Bibani Hargoji at Civil Sahib has given this amazing budget, and what they said was parents have the biggest role in minimizing the generation gap by understanding their children.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important that we understand our children and get to know our children. And that's the biggest and best advice that we can get, and that's given by Marburg as well.
And you've been gifted the time to do that as well.
Definitely,
Angie.
yes.
You're doing a great job. You're all amazing.